Joining me live is Griffith University Professor of International Relations, Ian Hall. Ian, lovely to have your company today. Thanks for joining me. Narendra Modi's party failed to secure an outright majority, though, for the first time in a decade. What does this represent to you?
Well, that was a big surprise. I think we'd all assumed that Narendra Modi's party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, were going to romp back into power as they'd done in 2014 and 2019. But in this case, it seems as though they've really been brought down by economic reality. India's been growing reasonably strongly over the last decade or so, about 6, 7, 8% GDP. But the problem that they've had is that there are not enough jobs being created for all of those young, ambitious Indians that are coming into the workforce every year.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, as you mentioned, there are a number of key issues that are facing Narendra Modi, and India has essentially spoken here. Who are Prime Minister Modi's coalition allies? And I guess what will they want in return now? What will it mean for Modi moving forward?
Well, he's now got a large number of allies, but two sets of allies, one from the northern state of Bihar and another one from Telangana in the south. These are very different kinds of allies. They represent very different interests. The one in the north in Bihar represents more farmer interests and some lower caste interests. In Telangana, they represent a poorer state, a new state. Actually, it's just recently been created in the Indian Union, but also one that's more economically backward. So both of these major coalition partners are going to be asking for quite a lot of resources to go from Delhi out into their states in order to assist their economic development and in order to produce those jobs that everybody is looking for.
Yes, so this will essentially make Modi, or the way that Modi has done things previously, he won't be able to do it the same, will he? He's going to have to really step up and change his way of leading now.
Yes, that's right. So Modi's been in a very unusual position for most Indian leaders. Coalitions are the norm in India, and these kinds of negotiations between different parties, different interests, this is the kind of the thing that most Indian leaders have to do. But for the last decade, Modi's been able to rule pretty much on his own and allow his party to dominate. So now he's got to work with these two coalition partners. He's going to have to bring these parties into government in some sense. He's going to have to hand out ministries and allow them to control those particular areas of policy. And that's not something that Modi has ever had to do in the last decade. And also earlier than that, he was 12 years as chief minister of Gujarat. And then he was also in a very privileged position of never having any major coalition partners. So he's very much more constrained than he ever has been in the past.
Yes, well, I was reading an article this morning where Modi was sort of, of course, claiming victory and this is a great thing, whereas the opposition was saying deep down they believe it's a real moral defeat for Modi here and that this would be really hurting him, not only on a political level but on a personal level as well. Anthony Albanese, our Prime Minister, has, of course, congratulated Modi in a phone call. What does this mean now for Australia's diplomatic relationship with India moving forward?
Well, that's a really good question. I think there's a fair amount of stability in terms of India's foreign policy, its strategic policy, its commitment to things like the Quad and the bilateral relationship with Australia. But of course, a prime minister that is more constrained and is more tangled in these kinds of internal debates and discussions with its coalition partners, a prime minister that's going to be more focused on those problematic economic realities within India may have less time to devote to foreign policy, to international relations. So for Australia, I think we're going to have to cope with the fact that India's government may have a little bit of a less time to commit to some of the things that we're interested in. And I think we also need to start looking beyond Modi. He'll no doubt stay Prime Minister for the next 5 years, but I think we can anticipate that at the next election we'll see a change of government and possibly a change of direction in India's foreign policy. And we've got to start preparing for that now.
That's really interesting, a point that you make there, because India is our largest democracy. So if they're pulling back and not as much attention going on stability in the Indo-Pacific, that's a major concern for Australia, right, at a time where we've got really heightened geopolitical tensions.
Look, there's no doubt that we are in a really uncertain situation at the moment. you know, and India is not the only country that's going to be looking inwards over the next few years. We could see that in the United States. After the upcoming election, we've seen a little bit of that too with our partner with Japan, another important partner in the Indo-Pacific. And of course, we ourselves are more concerned about our own economic situation and how things may develop over the next few years. So yes, it's going to take some effort to chart a way forward with our partners and to work with India to ensure that we see that stable, rules-based Indo-Pacific that we want to see.
And of course, we've got the strategic alliance with Quad as well. Ian Hall, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much indeed.